Hey friends, this is kind of like a supplementary video to my demonstration of the excellent Casio WK3700. In this video it's a bit different. We're going to go very deep into the synthesizing system, which I think you'll find is really agreeable and fun to use. We're also going to have a look at the rhythms because we didn't have a look at any of that in the previous demo. And I want you to bear in mind too that this is exactly the same for the WK3200 with the exception of the modulation wheel. If you've got a WK3200, nothing that I do in relation to the modulation wheel is going to be relevant to you unless you're using an external MIDI controller. The absence of a modulation wheel is the most significant difference, I think, on the 3200 compared to the 3700. Apart from that, it's just a disk drive and a few in-out sockets. Anyway, that's enough talk. Let's go dual screen now and have a look at this synthesizer. Okay, default piano sound. Take note of where the directional controls are and plus minus buttons. We'll need those. Press the synth button to begin. What we've activated is a long series of envelope controls, the first being attack. A See how nicely the sound responds to that. The next one, as you'd expect, is release. A lot of people find adjusting this handy if they don't have a foot pedal to control release. I'll just press plus and minus together to return that value to 0. It gets interesting now. We've got cutoff frequency, which on its own doesn't appear to do all that much, but combine it with resonance, which comes up next, and things start to get interesting. Higher resonance value and back to cutoff. And it accentuates that tone-altering effect. I'll just set them both to 25. I find that makes the sound a little bit more lively and bright. Then after resonance we move on to modulation, and this is the part that controls what the modulation wheel does. It can be vibrato as you'd normally expect on a keyboard. I've put my hand in shot there and messed up the contrast of the overhead camera, so let's get rid of that frame there and rely on our ears. For now I'll just skip past explaining the modulation wheel setting as that's only on the WK3700. Let's move along to vibrato control. There are 3 different intensities for vibrato. You can have a sine wave, a slightly sharper triangle wave, or a really hard square wave, which I enjoy using. And if you keep scrolling to the right, you can change the speed of that vibrato, and also how high that vibrato wave is. And you can also set how long the delay is before the vibrato actually kicks in. I'll just turn that vibrato right up again to give you a really clear example. The next control is octave, and that's pretty self-explanatory. You can go plus or minus 2 whole octaves. Then you can control velocity response, a value of 63 being the most sensitive to the pressure of your touch, and a value of 0 meaning it has no sensitivity. In other words, if you touch it light or hard, it's going to give you full volume. I'll set it at about 40 to keep my volume pretty consistent, but still expressive. The final 2 items in synth editing allow you to set how much of your sound is going to be routed through to the master reverb and master chorus effects. So that's a pretty good range of parameters that we can control, but it's not where synthing ends. In fact, it's only just the beginning, because now we move on to the digital signal processor. What I want to find here is a nice phaser effect so that I can go back to that modulation control and show you what the modulation wheel can do when set to each parameter of that phaser effect. Sometimes it's quite a pronounced difference, and sometimes it's very subtle. This will depend greatly on which parameter you've set the modulation wheel to, and indeed which effect or multi-effect you've chosen. Changing intensity, changing speed. This particular phaser effect also has a delay component. So you can see how whatever you assign the modulation wheel to will give you a lot of dynamic control over the sound. Bear in mind we're just using our default piano sound here and a very simple effect algorithm. You might find that as you're using your WK3200 or 3700 and you get to this point, the mind starts to boggle with the possibilities. So now that we've made our synth settings and added effects, we can now press the layer button and do the whole thing again on a second layer. Let's find a nice string sound to layer under that piano. So to sum up, we can have two layered oscillators, each with their own envelope controls. Then we've got separate reverb, chorus, and DSP effects that will apply to both oscillators. That is a fair bit of control for a home keyboard, and you can get lots of great sounds out of it. Anyway, now let's move on to percussion. So the beats section is pretty good too, and I find a lot of those rhythms more imaginative than Casio's newer models. That completes my demo, friends. I just want to emphasize once more what a great keyboard this is and how strongly it competes with keyboards that you can get on the market today. The WK3200 and the 3700 are on the second-hand market, very cheap, and if you come across one, please think seriously about buying it because it'll send a message to Casio that the older way they were doing things is actually much better than the newer way. Thanks for watching Gear Facts. I'll see you next time.